In this lesson, we're going to be learning how to use the lighting tool. Okay, so this is a relatively simple tool to use, but you may have not used it before, and it can make a huge difference in your workflow. So right now I don't have any lights in this scene, and what I want to do is go ahead and add a few area lights. And I'm going to jump out of my camera view there for a moment and grab that light and start to kind of move it up. So just want to make sure that I can see it there. And I'll go ahead and turn this grid off as well, just so we're not having to look at that. There we go. And you can see as I begin to pull this light up, more things are becoming illuminated. Now I want this to look like it is a salt shaker in a kitchen. So what I'm going to do is make this a really long light so that it feels as if it has maybe a kind of like a fluorescent bulb in a kitchen. Now I'm going to jump back to my camera view. So I'm looking at this in the way that I would want to render it. And now what I'm going to do is, with my light selected, go to Tools and choose the Lighting tool. And then I can come over here and begin to choose the mode. So usually for things like this, I'll do maybe one or two for the diffuse placement and one for the specular placement. So let's just start with the diffuse placement. So you can kind of start to see how as I begin lighting this from a few different directions, we're getting some different looks. Now, I want to have a light here for the diffuse, but I'm also going to want some speculars, so I can put those in there as well. First, let's take a look at our interactive render region and just see how dark this is and figure out what else we need to add. Okay, so the top of our little salt shaker is looking great, while the side is not so much. So what I'd like to do is go ahead and turn on my ambient illumination option there for my light. I just have my light selected and I'm just going through changing those options. And you can see it kind of dulls this top a little bit, but we get more on the side. So let's jump back out of our camera view and kind of see what did the lighting tool do. So it kind of came down here and allowed us to cast some more light. I'm going to also add just a regular light to this and kind of pull this up and away here. And let's go ahead and go back to our camera view. Let's just see if this type of light doesn't help us out a little bit. Okay, so this is getting brighter. This is looking a lot better. We don't have any shadows really to speak of yet, as far as just a shadow being cast on the ground. We have a little bit of some ambient occlusion, but I'd like to use the lighting tool again to help me get the diffuse looking better here. So let's go ahead and grab our lighting tool again, and with light 1 selected, we'll go ahead and add a little bit of an angle to this to kind of diffuse this on this side, and then maybe we'll be able to start getting a shadow on the left side later on once we turn those on. Okay, so that's looking really nice. And what I can do now is go into that light, and where it says shadow none, I'm going to change that to shadow map soft, and I'll do that also for the first light that we added. And now that I have gotten my diffuse set up, I'd like to start adding a few lights to get their specular highlights and kind of start editing that as well. So I will add in another area light. We'll jump out of our camera for a second. And again, I'm just going to move this up here. Kind of get this out of the way for a second. And this is going to be another one of those long, skinny, sort of kitchen size lights. And we'll jump back over to our camera and increase the size of our interactive render region again. Then let's grab our tools and grab our lighting tool. And you can already see that we're getting a nice highlight from that. But I'm going to change this from the diffuse placement to the specular placement. And then we can add a little specular highlight maybe kind of right over here. And let's see how that changes the way that this is oriented and the way that it's looking. Great, so now we're getting a specular highlight from the light we set up for our diffuse, as well as the one that we just moved over here to the side. So we can really start to get some interesting looking highlights from doing things like this. Maybe I want to change it a little bit and kind of make it closer to the other one so it's not creating such a perfect X shape, and you can kind of see how that moved it over and now how those are interacting. Now this looks pretty good, but there's something else we can do to make it look even better, and we're going to talk about that in the next lesson, which will be going into some of the tabs inside of the lights themselves and editing the way that they are showing up in our shot. So stick around and we'll talk about that in our next lesson.